You glance at a wall socket and see a startled face staring back. Two round holes above a rectangular slot. A silent scream in plastic. You know it's not a face, but your brain refuses to unsee it. You shake your head. Maybe you even laugh. But the real answer is far stranger. This quirk isn't a glitch. It's a survival superpower that once kept your ancestors breathing. And it's still running inside your head right now, shaping your superstitions, your fears, and the way you text a smiley face. Rewind the clock about 200,000 years. You're on the African savanna. Tall grass ripples in the wind. Every shadow could be a lion. Every silence could be a stalking predator. Your senses are on fire. You don't have claws. You don't have fangs. Your only weapon is your brain. And in that brain, a very specific alarm system is screaming. Its job is simple. Detect faces. Fast. Any face. Anywhere. Because a face means agency. A face means something is looking at you. And if something is looking at you, you might be on the menu. Now here's the cruel math of survival. Let's say you hear a rustle in the bush. It could be the wind. It could be a leopard. Your brain has to decide in a split second. If you assume it's the wind and it's actually a leopard, you die. That's a catastrophic error. If you assume it's a leopard and it's only the wind, you feel silly for a moment. That's a minor inconvenience. So evolution tuned your brain to make the safer mistake over and over again. The psychologist Stuart Guthrie called this the animistic bias. He argued in the early 1990s that humans are hardwired to see faces and agency everywhere because the cost of missing a real threat was just too high. Your ancestors who had this bias lived long enough to pass it on. The ones who didn't got filtered out of the gene pool. Their skepticism died with them. This face-hunting machinery lives in a very specific part of your brain. In the late 1990s, neuroscientist Nancy Canwisher and her team at MIT identified a small region in the fusiform gyrus that lights up like a firecracker whenever you look at a face. They named it the fusiform face area, or FFA. This patch of neurons is astonishingly specialized. Show it a car, a chair, a random shape, and it stays quiet. Show it two dots above a curved line, and it fires instantly. That's how exquisitely tuned you are to faces. Even cartoon faces. Even upside-down faces. Even faces made of fruit arranged on a plate. Your FFA treats them all as worthy of inspection. But the FFA doesn't wait for permission. It runs automatically. A 2014 study led by researchers at the University of Helsinki put volunteers in an fMRI scanner and showed them pictures of random objects that just happened to look a bit like faces. A rock with eye holes. A pepper with a sad mouth. The participants consciously knew these weren't real faces, yet their fusiform face areas lit up exactly as if they were looking at an actual human face. The brain's initial response was identical. The conscious, rational part of the brain only corrected the error a few hundred milliseconds later. That's the ancient alarm system overriding modern logic. First, you see the face. Then you tell yourself it's nothing. Why does this matter? Because that half-second reaction changed the way your ancestors lived. Imagine an early human scanning a cliffside. A pattern of rocks looks vaguely like two eyes and a nose. The FFA screams, "Face!" Instantly, the human freezes. Heart rate spikes, muscles tense. A moment later, the logical brain says it's just a rock formation. But that tiny hesitation might have saved a life if the face had been real. More importantly, this hyperactive face detection didn't just protect against predators. It also helped detect allies. Recognizing a friend's face in low light, through foliage, from a distance, was just as critical. Cooperation required social intelligence. So the same machinery served two purposes: avoiding teeth and finding helping hands. Now jump forward a few hundred centuries. You're no longer on the savannah. You're in your kitchen. You see a burn mark on a piece of toast that looks exactly like a famous person. You take a photo. You post it online. Why do you care? Because your brain treats that shape as deeply meaningful. It isn't just a random scorch mark. It's a sign, an agent, maybe even a message. This tendency to infuse random patterns with intention is one of the roots of superstition and religious iconography. People have reported seeing the face of a deity in a cloud, a tree trunk, a water stain. Psychologist Carl Jung speculated that such projections come from a universal collective unconscious, but a more evolutionary lens says it's simply your FFA doing what it was built to do, and your conscious mind layering story on top of it. Consider an experiment led by psychologist Jessie Preston in 2013. She and her team showed participants random images that could be interpreted as faces or meaningful symbols. Those who were primed to feel a lack of control in their lives were significantly more likely to see faces and patterns. When the world feels chaotic, your brain doubles down on finding order. This makes perfect ancestral sense. If you couldn't control the environment, you needed to detect hidden agents who might be causing the chaos. A rustle you couldn't explain became a spirit. A face-like pattern on the cave wall became a warning from the ancestors. The same neural machinery that spotted lions also spawned the first ghost stories. Now think about a typical day in your modern life. You walk past a building with windows that look like sad eyes. You see a grinning face in the grille of a car. You interpret the front of a house as a face, two windows, a door. Architects call this the face of a building. Your brain cannot help but read the world in facial expressions, even when you know it's absurd. This is why certain car designs look aggressive or friendly, why a new product with a subtle upward curve evokes a positive feeling. Designers exploit your pareidolia constantly. They know that a logo with a hidden smile triggers a subconscious sense of warmth. Your ancestral survival software is now a tool for selling you stuff. And then there's the emoji, a colon followed by a parenthesis. That's all it takes. 2 dots above a curve. Your FFA fires instantly. You don't need pupils, eyebrows, or nostrils. The minimal geometry of a face is enough. In fact, the simpler the face, the more broadly your brain projects emotion onto it. A 2017 study by Japanese neuroscientist Masahiro Imaizumi found that the brain processes emoticons like lag and in the same region that evaluates real facial expressions. Your neural hardware does not draw a hard line between a photograph of a human smile and 2 typed characters. To your ancient circuits, they are just another set of features to decode. Are you safe? Are you threatened? Are you liked? The emoji lets your social software run on pure symbolism. It's a hyper-efficient way to signal emotion across a digital landscape that otherwise feels empty and cold. There's a deeper, slightly unsettling layer to this. Your brain doesn't just see faces and things. It automatically assigns them trustworthiness and emotion. A study by psychologists Nicholas Watkins and others at the University of North Carolina showed that people consistently attribute personality traits to car front ends. A wider set of headlights evokes dominance. A lower, rounded grille evokes submissiveness. Your social judgment machinery, evolved for scanning strangers in a tight-knit tribe, is now being applied to your toaster. It's evaluating the moral character of a household appliance. When you say your computer is angry at you, some part of your cortex means it literally. The line between object and agent is permanently blurred by your history. What about children? They exhibit pareidolia even more strongly. Research by developmental psychologists has shown that infants prefer face-like patterns over scrambled patterns within hours of birth. A 2004 study led by cognitive scientist Francesca Simeone at the University of Padua found that newborns as young as 2 days old turn their heads toward a schematic face-like pattern, 3 dots in a triangle. This suggests the face recognition template isn't learned. It's at least partly innate, preloaded into the visual system by millions of years of evolution. Your very first gaze was a search for connection. The ancient survival need to find a caregiver and read their intent was so urgent that it shaped the fetal wiring of your brain. This brings us to the darkest edge of pareidolia. If seeing faces is a survival superpower, then failing to see faces is a vulnerability. The flip side of this system is that when it breaks, so does your ability to navigate the social world. The condition known as prosopagnosia, or face blindness, makes it extremely difficult to recognize familiar faces. And some research on autism spectrum conditions suggests differences in face processing, with some individuals showing reduced FFA activation. It reveals just how much of your everyday social reality hangs on an ancient piece of neural code. Every glance at a friend, every moment of shared eye contact, is a miracle of evolutionary engineering that you never consciously notice until it's gone. Now return to that wall socket, the one with the horrified expression. What is it really telling you? It's telling you that your brain is still scanning the horizon for lions. It's still checking every shadow for a friend. It's still building a society of imaginary faces around you, because 1,000,000 years ago, loneliness meant death. So the next time you see a face in a cloud or a smile in your coffee foam, don't dismiss it as a silly trick of the mind. Recognize it as a ghost from your ancestral past. A survival instinct so powerful that it now colors your superstitions, your art, your design choices, and the little yellow faces you send across the world every day. That startled wall socket isn't looking at you, but the part of your brain that kept your ancestors alive is definitely looking at it. And it's still asking the same ancient question: friend or foe?